we're gonna cast my hand because I'm gonna be the puppeteer for most of these puppets. And then that way we can build the face around my features, which is great because it's kind of custom fit.
Which slug is this?
It's the middle one.
This is Elmer.
The fat one.
This is Elmer, the middle one and the fat one. Nick was correct on all accounts.
I can sculpt the head up and around my hand cast, so I've got something nice and form fitted, and I'm gonna be able to actuate the little antenna on the front with these two fingers, and then the eyes are gonna be built up over top here. So the animatronic pieces are actually gonna be built into a skull above my hand, and the wires are gonna come down my wrist, up and over my shoulder.
Sweet.
I'm gonna whale this knife around a little bit more.
This is for Garth, the skinnier slug. So you can see the difference between the two. Nick is the hairiest man I've ever met.
I don't want the product to pull all my arm hair out, so just
lubing it up.
Just lubing it up.
Let loose the Kraken. He's stuck.
I'm stuck. There we go.
Oh, cool.
The plaster's all set. Pete's put in these comically large nails into the back sides of these things, and that's mainly to give us something to stick into the styrofoam, which is in the back here. The alginate, it's pretty much just a one-shot deal. You get one casting out of the mold, but it's generally pretty cheap, so it's a good way to do it when you only need one. So there's one of our hands. Looks like this one. And the idea is that this is going to get mounted to the front of this guy. When you do glue this one in, try and just keep everything as straight as you can. You ready?
Action.
Okay. Hey everybody, it's Nick. We're about to start the mold for our first slug, which is super exciting. We're going to be covering this whole thing in plaster, top to bottom, and eventually it's going to break apart. We're going to have a whole bunch of pieces, and that's going to give us our structure that we can actually paint our silicone in, and we'll end up with a silicone version of this slug. Right now we're just building a big dam, so this whole section here is going to be one giant piece. So all of the plaster will get put on top of the table. It's going to come up over top of here and wrap in and around the eyes. So this is going to be a pretty large, substantial piece, but it'll hopefully save us some time. All right, so our first half is done. What's gonna happen now is we're gonna tear apart this whole assembly and then flip it right on its back, and then we're gonna start the face.
First break of the day. It's been 12 hours since you started. What do you have to say?
I'm good to go. In the morning.
When do we start?
9 in the morning. I'm out.
That's 18 hours ago.
Okay, so it's the next day. Pete and I have gotten some sleep. We've taken some Advil to help our backs because they were both pretty trashed after working on this for so long, but it's all set up. It's nice and hard. So now it's just a matter of actually breaking into the sections and splitting those mold pieces apart from themselves, and then it's just cleaning and prepping, and then we're ready to cast something.
Hi, I'm Nick from Pete's Basement. This is the mold that we're about to work on. We're gonna put that piece on that piece, and then I'm gonna melt the edges so the plasticine stick together. And then I'm gonna pour more plaster inside, and I'm gonna get a little bit of like a slug brain. And the slug brain is gonna be able to be used to make little fancy animatronics. Yeah, that's my story.
All right, so all the molds are done. Everything's nice and cleaned out. And what we're gonna do now is actually brush in our layer of silicone. And we're gonna do that into each piece of the mold first, then put everything together, and then seam it so it's actually one solid piece of silicone before we pull it out of the mold. Okay, so we're mid-process with putting in the silicone, as I explained earlier, and I'm just starting to spread this out, and you can see it's a little bit thicker in spots than others, and I just want that to look all even, so it's gonna be one nice color by the time we're done.
Elbow deep in the hole.
Spreading silicone on a seam from a giant plaster mold. we've got all of our silicone done. Everything's seamed up on the inside of the mold. So we've got our foam, which we're going to mix up next. And it's expanding, so it's actually going to fill the big empty cavity that's in here. And then we'll have something we can pull out of the mold, which is super exciting. Alright, this is it. So we're going to cut all this duct tape and open up this big mold, and hopefully we have a slug inside. Alright, so now I've got to seam all of this together, so you can kind of see like our mold didn't necessarily grab, which is a good thing because we need to take this foam out of the silicone, and this is where all the animatronics are going to actually lie inside of. So I'm going to seam one side and get rid of it, and then we're going to put our animatronics in, and then I'll seal the animatronics in eventually. But right now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut all of this flashing off that you see along the side, and then patch any holes that need to be patched. Tying all our cables for our eyes. We're like 3 days behind because this just doesn't want to work for us. But it's coming together now. We're getting everything tied up. I'm going to stick this in that. Work quite nicely.
So what's going on here, Nick? What's the plan with this slug?
So to save some time, what we're doing is we took our original sculpture and we just cut out sections, and we shortened his eye tentacles and then his little nose feeler bits as well. And we're going to modify his mouth a little bit and hopefully make him a little bit wider throughout the neck. And that's all just to make him look slightly different than the first slug, but hopefully close enough that he still looks like a brother, and but far enough away that he's still his own character. Pete, let it be known, if you ever treat me like George Lucas treats people, I will stab you.
I treat you worse already.